Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Imogen. I'm a second year BA Geography student at the London School of Economics. However, today we are not talking about the academic side of my degree, but instead we are talking about how and why you can get a job whilst you're at university. Now, I'm sure many of you are heading off to university in September, and I'm sure some of you watching this are also already at university. Budgeting is a skill that we all have to learn, and it's a bit of a steep learning curve when you first get to university. However, one thing that you can do to help boost your income is have a job whilst you are at university. First things first, why on earth would you want a job whilst you're at university? I guess the most obvious reason for this is to boost your income. Financially, the student loan for students in the UK is not necessarily enough to live off in really expensive places like London, depending on the lifestyle that you want to live. And also in a lot of places around the UK, you're paying various different amounts of rent for your accommodation. And so in some cities, you might actually need a job in order to be able to sustain yourself through university. However, I got an email. However, even if you do have enough to live off, if you want to travel during your summers, a lot of students go off and they have 4 months traveling because we get super long summer holidays. You will need to start saving up for that maybe during the year. And so having a job whilst you're at uni gives you that opportunity to save at the same time. The second reason that you might want to have a job at uni is because I think it increases your productivity. Now, obviously this depends to a certain extent on how many hours you're working, how intense your job is, all those sorts of things. However, I do genuinely think that giving tasks a longer amount of time just allows you more time to procrastinate. I think there's a law behind this. I think it's Faye Bate who was talking about this in a video the other day, called Parkinson's law, which is that a task will take the amount of time that you allocate to it. So if you allocate it 4 days to do an essay, for example, it will take the whole 4 days, or you'll procrastinate it till the end of those 4 days. However, if you're okay, I've got to sit down and I've got a shift in 4 hours and this essay has to be submitted before then, you are much more likely to be more productive in those 4 hours. And you might not necessarily finish the essay, but at least you will make a bit more headway towards finishing it. This does depend on you as an individual, but I do find that I'm more motivated when I know that I've got something in the calendar, and it just gives you a bit more structure, because one thing that a lot of university students struggle with when they first move is the lack of structure in their day, because you might only have 6, 7, 8 contact hours a week compared to school where you had 25, 30 hours of lessons a week. And so it is a very different vibe to that, and that can take a little bit of adjustment too. However, if you're adding in other things like society meetings and your shifts, and also a bit of uni work in the library or whatever, you can start to fill up your day, and that does help to boost your motivation, your productivity. Another reason that you might want a job at university that you might have thought of, you might not have thought of, is that it will give you a chance to meet some different people. Now, depending on which university you're at, this will depend on whether the people that you're working with are also students, and this also depends on the industry that you're working in. However, I have found that when I've had jobs and I'm working with people who aren't at my university, it's really nice during stressful periods at uni to be able to walk away from all of the work and everybody who's going through deadline season or whatever, and just be able to go and do something different, speak to people of different ages. In a couple of my jobs, so one of my jobs is working on reception at my halls, which, even though you'd think, oh, that's going to be full of students, I actually work with quite a few full-time members of staff who are quite a bit older than me, and it is so nice to have a normal conversation with them about their family, about their kids during work, and just not have to think about uni work for a little bit, or not have to listen to summatives, formatives, deadlines, all these sorts of words that are just flying about all the time in my conversations with my friends. It's so nice to get away from that sometimes. Equally, in some of my other jobs for the university, I'm working with whole teams of students. However, these teams of students aren't people in my halls, and they're not people on my course. So it's a really nice opportunity to meet people outside of the circles of friends that I normally associate with and I normally spend time with. And it just gives you more people in your network. So maybe you're sat there and I've convinced you with the reasons as to why you might want a job whilst you're at university, and you've decided you want one. Now you need to think about what sort of job you want to have. And I have a list of things that you should consider before rushing into applications, and just to sort out your ideas about what you want from this job. The first thing to consider, and this is really quite important, is how many hours a week you want to work. If you are on an international student visa when you're here in the UK, I'm pretty certain, this stands for all students, you are limited to 20 hours of paid work a week, and this is a British government requirement, so you absolutely cannot go over that. So you need to look for part-time jobs that are advertising for less than 20 hours a week, really. You also need to think about whether you want to work during term time or whether you want to work during the holidays. I have a friend, Anna, who works for a bank, and she only works in the holidays. So she works back at home, and when she goes home for the holidays, she works there and just does a few shifts. And then I also have other friends who only work whilst they're at university. And like some of my jobs that I do where I work for the university, I obviously don't do them over the holidays. There are like pros and cons to both in terms of, at least during term time, you can focus solely on your academics, and then you can obviously like spend your time at home getting like money and stuff. So you've got two different focuses and it keeps things very separate. However, on the other hand, I really like kind of getting to the end of term, having worked really hard both in my paid job and doing loads of shifts and being really busy and doing my uni work, and then being able to just completely relax over the holidays. I know a lot of you watching this video will be wanting to go to top universities like LSE, for example, UCL, all those sorts of places. So as a benchmark, I'm obviously at LSE, I'm a second year student. I work 6-hour shifts on the reception at my halls, and I was doing 2 or 3 of those a week last term. However, I've cut it down, so I'm only doing 1 6-hour shift a week, just so I can focus on YouTube and things. But I think if I didn't have YouTube, so if this was my only job, I would be able to manage 2 6-hour shifts a week, so about 12 hours a week. And that is like manageable with my uni workload. Obviously this is going to vary from person to person, but I thought I'd just give you that rough guide. You'll also want to work out when in the week you're going to work and if you want to have regular shifts. For example, I have Mondays pretty much completely free apart from swimming. And so I tend to try and ask for shifts on those specific days when I have not much on, because to be honest, you're not paying £9,250 a year for nothing. You do not want to be missing classes and lectures. Your academic side of uni is way more important than job. You might find though you get offered a job that really aligns with what you want to do and you're really happy with it, but there's not as much flexibility. So in that case, maybe do look into seeing if you can switch classes around. So last year when I was vaccinating, my shift pattern was just absolutely all over the place. And in that case, I spoke to LSE, I spoke to my class teachers who were really lovely, and they would let me move between different classes on different days, on different weeks, in order to enable me to be able to do those shifts, just because of the nature of what I was doing and the fact that they really wanted to support the fact that I was working to help the vaccination effort. So I think just open communication with the university can be really helpful in terms of trying to balance everything, because having a job at uni is an additional, I don't want to say pressure because there are a lot of benefits that come from it, but it is an additional strain on your time, should we say. Also, the amount of hours that you work might be linked to how much you're earning per hour and how much you need to be earning on a weekly basis in order to live comfortably. So just working all of that out before you start kind of looking for jobs means that you're going to find something that really suits your schedule better, and therefore you're more likely to stick at it and you're more likely to be able to balance everything. The second thing to consider, and I cannot stress how important this is do you want the job more for experience or more for the money? Now, there are going to be some jobs that are really, really good in terms of both. They're going to give you great experience, great transferable skills. In fact, most jobs will give you good transferable skills for the future, but some of them will be more aligned with like your future career path than others. And then there'll be some jobs that just have like pay really well, but aren't necessarily the most interesting thing to be doing all day, every day. So I think it's important to work out what your reasoning behind why you want to get a job is, because then you're more likely to be able to find a job that suits that. A prime example of this, I guess, would be like internships. Often they're not paid very well, but they will give you fantastic experience for the long run and maybe help you to earn more in the long term than in the short term. However, jobs in like hospitality and jobs in bars and things like that, and in retail, all those sorts of jobs, like there's a kind of benchmark of how much you're going to be earning, and it's maybe slightly higher than maybe a like poorly paid internship. However, you're going to be learning a different set of skills through that. So if you're doing it more for the money, then that might be a better route to go down. Also because that's kind of shift work that you can fit in around university, whereas an internship might need you to be full-time for like quite a long period of time, which financially might be quite a strain for you. So yeah, just balancing all these things. And likewise, volunteering. Like volunteering is fantastic experience, but it's completely unpaid. And so it's accounting for that in terms of like, do you want to prioritize having a job to gain experience and learn skills, or do you want to prioritize just being able to make as much money as quickly as possible? There are two main types of contract that you can be on, I guess. So you can either be on like a 0 hours contract, where you can just pick up shifts when it suits you, so you don't have like a regular working pattern, but then obviously that's more flexible around exam period. You can just do no shifts whatsoever. Or do you want a regular part-time job where you have like a Monday and a Wednesday shift every single week, and you know in these set hours you are going to be working? Just something to consider, what works better for you. Do you need the flexibility, or can can you afford to have like slightly more structured working hours, and will that work better for you in terms of planning in the long run? Another consideration when looking at getting a job is thinking about time off. Now, this is kind of ironic coming from me because a lot of my friends would describe me as a bit of a workaholic, but you cannot work every hour of every day. And to be honest, although it will make you more productive, having a job will just reduce the amount of time that you have to do other things, whether that is uni work or spending time with your friends or just chilling out. You are going to have maybe a slightly different work-life balance to some of your other friends at uni, if you have a job as well to balance with that. Just being aware of when your chill time is going to be is really important, and making sure that you're kind of scheduling in time for that as well, I would say, is a key consideration before you start working. Or maybe not before you start working, but like in the first few weeks of your job, things will just settle down and you'll kind of work out when you have free time and when you need to be getting ready to go to work, walking to work, and just it will all kind of become apparent. But making sure that you are still building in time to see your friends, have a life, and like chill out, it's really important. So now in your head, you've got a rough idea of what sort of job you want. Now, the next thing you need to do is tailor your CV so that it's fit for the type of job that you're applying for. So for example, if you're applying for internships or whatever, you might want to put more academic stuff on your CV, or put it higher up on your CV, should we say. However, if you're wanting to apply for a job in like retail or hospitality and you've got previous work experience in those sectors, that needs to go right at the top of your CV. This is also the sort of thing that you can start working on now if you're heading off to university in September. You can make sure that CV is ready in the summer before you go, because trust me, the first few weeks of uni are intense. And if you can do anything to make the process of like trying to apply for jobs, also trying to get a balance with all of this random uni work and meeting loads of new people, if you can do anything to make that easier for yourself in advance, then I would recommend doing it. So just have a look at your CV over summer if you think you are going to have a job whilst you're at uni. Consider what sort of skills you already have. There's often ways of monetizing your hobby. So for example, if you're a really keen swimmer and you're going to be swimming at a local pool, maybe you can look into whether there's lifeguarding jobs there. Or if you've worked at your local pub or your local bar, maybe look for bar work in your city that you're moving to, because you're obviously more likely to be able to sort that out quicker, and they're more likely to hire you than if you maybe, I don't know, want to go and work in an animal rescue centre and your only experience is working in a pub. There is such a wide range of different jobs that you can have whilst you're at uni, and in terms of what you can do and where you can find those jobs, I'm going to leave that till the next video, because I have very kindly roped in the help of my friends to talk you through their jobs, how they got them, why they got them, all those sorts of things. So hopefully that will be a bit more interesting than just listening to me blabber on. Anyway, if you have enjoyed this video, you found it useful, do give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to see that video with my friends that's coming very, very soon, and I will see you next time with that video. Bye!